Hey, what's going on, guys? And welcome to this episode of the Sliding Stink Podcast. It's your host, Adam Tutunji, back at you guys again with another episode. And today I am with Darren. Darren, thank you so much for hopping on the show, my man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
For sure. So, Darren, you're the chief technology over at Lake City Bank. So, can you give us a little bit of background about your professional expertise and kind of get us up to date with how you got to where you're at today? And we're going to get the podcast started.
Sure thing. Yeah, my name is Darrin McLaughlin. I'm Chief Technology Officer for Lake City Bank out of Warsaw, Indiana. We're a $6.5 billion financial institution, largely commercial, with some retail, mortgage, and so forth. My background has been really 30 years in technology, starting pre-internet. Built a career out of bringing mom and pop organizations from spreadsheet paper processes to a larger cap audience, taking people, groups from a $1 and $2 million shop to 40, 60, $100 million shops, largely focused on centralizing, integrating, in the early days, providing them with internet, centralizing offices, centralizing core systems, MRP, ERP, bringing in Exchange and SQL and all of those platforms. The last 10 years have been spent in banking primarily, credit unions and banks. And the responsibilities have just really grown over time, from being the one guy in IT back in the day to, developing leadership skills, developing, political savvy within a management structure and organization. And then finally working my way up through, VP, senior VP into the C-suite now. So that's I've incorporated a lot of business acumen development, right? Self-awareness development, people skills, those sorts of things, beyond just technology skills. I mean, that's really, in my opinion, where the difference is that, there's, at some point you kind of outgrow your own technology background and realize that to really advance any further, you have to stop really focusing on the technology background and really have an understanding of systems, platforms, how they interoperate, how they work together, and how they serve the business as a whole. You really need to become more business savvy, people savvy, inter-office politics savvy, I guess you could say. How to develop leadership skills, motivate people, exert influence, those sorts of skills that really become important when you get to the strategy level, right? I don't crawl under desks anymore. I don't do any of that. I really largely my two areas are strategy development and providing an environment for my people to do their best work.
So, from your experience, do you need, how much of a technical background does one need to become a CTO?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think that varies from organization to organization. I can tell you, I've collaborated with peers whose CTOs have no technical background whatsoever. Right? They really are business leaders who have a technical savvy. They have an understanding, like I said, of systems and platforms and how they interoperate, process understanding. And then rely on other folks, whether that's third parties, MSPs, or internal staff, to really manage the day-to-day technical aspects of things. For me personally, I think of background in project management and a long history of technical ability have really helped me to get to where I am. The technical abilities, I have just an engineering mind. And so, like I said, I understand systems. I understand how they work together. I am a technophile too, so I just have a natural inclination to learning about and discovering new technologies and innovations and staying abreast. I mean, that part comes easy to me. But I see, at the same time, I see people who are super highly technical but lack the leadership, lack the people skills, lack the political savvy, that just never break through, right? They don't have the acumen to sit in the C-suite, in upper management environments, and be able to interact with other folks. I think that is, to some degree inherent a little bit in technologists, that it is a rarity to find someone with a deep understanding of technology and those skill sets, and also has the people skills and the business acumen and everything else that goes along with it in order to break into that C-suite environment. That's not to say that it can't be done, because I see those too. But for me, I'll be honest, it's largely been the people skills and the leadership skills and understanding decision making and strategy development that has helped me to get to where I am.
So if you were to give it a split, like say, 80% management, 20% technical, 50% management,
Yeah.
50% technical, where do you think it stands?
Yeah, I would say it's 80% technical, 20%, or I'm sorry, 80% management, 20% technical. And I'll be honest, it might be 85% management and decision making, right? In my day-to-day, that is really what I do, is decision making. And that is what becomes really apparent to me, is that the day-to-day operators, they're looking for someone to make the decision, right? They can come to you with the information. They're willing to, make recommendation and all of those things. It's the ability to parse all the information, but have a deeper understanding of, okay, well, how will this affect others? How will it, what are going to be the ramifications? What are the risks? What are the benefits, the pros, cons, from budgeting to, all of these different things that they don't see. They don't look at it from that perspective. All they know is what's right in front of them. And so, yeah, I would say maybe 85% is, decision making, and 15% of it is technical. As I like to say, I've forgotten more about technology than most of my team will ever know about technology. But particularly for me, my experience is that the technologies have changed so rapidly of late, right? Particularly in the finance industry and that kind of thing. It's no longer about, can you support, Microsoft Office and SQL and servers. Everything is cloud-based and API driven. There's SDKs. I mean, all of these different technologies that a lot now, you have individual specialties in all of these different areas. There's no way to be the jack of all trades anymore, not for an organization of this size. That you've got a team of 30, and there's a reason why you have a team of 30, is because you got 25 of them are specialists.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I'm just really reflecting a lot on from my perspective, because I kind of came out of college and I just got immediately into running a business. So everything you're saying very much resonates to like just my natural philosophy of working, but I also I think it's very valuable, because from somebody who's trying to really level up, understanding that perspective is something that I feel a lot of people don't kind of comprehend, because there's a lot of and the technical world is very, how do I explain this? It's kind of like medicine. It's like you dive into it and God knows where you can end up, right? It's an ocean of things, right? There's so many things. So when you start talking about like, oh, how technical do I need to be? It's like, where does it even end? At what point are you ever going to be like, hey, like, I'm good. This is where I'm at. It's always ever evolving. So I'm curious, from somebody, like if someone's listening and they're like just kind of getting started with their career, what's a realistic roadmap or a timeline of like how long it would take them to become, get into the C-suite and kind of get a shot at doing what you're doing?
Yeah. Again, it kind of depends, because I'll tell you. So, we have, like a lot of organizations our size, we have a help desk system, right? We have a help desk team. And we think of that as our training ground, right? For, it's usually entry level. We'll take folks that have some certification, maybe an associate's degree, even a bachelor's degree, if that's where they're at. But it's our training ground, and we help develop them. We're very strong in the development world. We have an entire university program within our organization that helps develop folks, pay for their certifications and those sorts of things. And so that can be a long road for somebody who maybe didn't go to college, didn't focus in computer sciences and, those sorts of things. And so it'd be, help desk and up to 3 tiers from help desk, maybe managing the help desk to systems administration or network administration. There's sort of 2 specialties there, or even into the security world, right? The cybersecurity side of things. And we have folks that have done all 3 of those things, gone into either systems administration, network administration, or cybersecurity. And then you're talking about working up through a track there to, information security up to, security analyst, through the tiers of security analyst to information security officer to chief information security officer. I would say today that's probably your fastest path than anything. If you're looking to get into a C-suite, you could probably do that in 5 to 10 years if you're good, motivated, and have some drive and are able to develop the people skills, right? And by that I mean there are some real skill sets, not just in being nice to people. One of the things that's always benefited me is the ability to explain very technical frameworks and information in very accessible ways to non-technical people, right?
Yeah.
That is a critical skill. And, it's one thing to be likable and to be able to build rapport quickly and establish relationships and build relationships, which are all very important. But that ability to be able to explain very technical terms and systems to non-technical people in a way that is understandable and accessible, because in these roles, whether it's CTO, CIO, CISO, whatever it might be, you're having to explain a lot of very technical stuff to non-technical people in order to get buy-in for initiatives or strategies that you feel are important to the organization. You've got to go and fight for budget. You've got to go and fight for resources, and you've got to be able to explain why these things are important strategically to your organization. And so those are some of the skills that are self-taught. You can't go take a class in college on people skills. You've got to seek that out on your own and develop those tools, and hopefully have good mentors. I was lucky that throughout my career, I always had really good mentors who were good enough to come to me and say, "Hey, I saw you do this. That was dumb. Here's what you should have done." And then being able to be self-reflective and self-aware enough to say, "Okay, I get what you're saying. I appreciate what you said, and I'm going to incorporate that into my operations." Like I said, I've been lucky that I've had several, and they're largely the key skills that I then try to translate down to my direct reports in helping them develop. Right, I used my own stumblings as examples of what not to do and how to do it better, to hopefully allow them to not have to make the same mistakes that I've made in the past,
Sure.
to accelerate their growth and development. So, so there's a long path and a short path. Like I said, I think cybersecurity really is number one. There's huge opportunity there. I feel like particularly in regulated industries like banking, healthcare, and so forth, that the regulators are putting such emphasis on cybersecurity. I mean, everybody just went through the CrowdStrike situation, right? And even though, that wasn't really a breach of any nature, I can tell you our CISO and I were joined at the hip for 2 days. Just reassuring folks we were not directly impacted, but a lot of our vendors and third parties and partners were. And so assessing and communicating, I mean, largely, we spent the day communicating. We didn't do anything technical. We didn't reconfigure anything. We didn't, install anything or fix anything. We spent the day drafting communications, pretty much all day. That's communicating internally to our peers, to our subordinates, and to our partners. That's largely what we did to navigate the CrowdStrike situation. And largely that's what you're doing during any sort of cybersecurity incident or any sort of implementation, go live, rollout. Communication is the key. Um, so like I say, there are definitely different paths. There's long paths and short paths. I think the key to me is have as strong a technical background as you can. um, I would say wider more than deep, right? I use this sort of river analogy that the ones that I see go places the quickest are the ones who have the broadest breadth of knowledge and maybe not the most pinpoint but deep, right? The understanding of how different systems work together instead of I know one system and I know it better than anybody else in the world. You're probably going to get more pigeonholed with that. And when they find somebody like that, they want to keep them right where they're at. But you want to develop a broad set of technical skills, and then be self-aware enough to realize that you need to develop leadership, you need to develop people skills, empathy, managerial skills, how to have tough conversations, how to motivate people, how to read people, how to understand what motivates other people. And that, like I say, inner office political savvy is never a bad thing.
So what's one thing that you wish like 15 years ago you knew that you probably think you could have gotten you a lot further in your career if you just reflect back on it?
That's a good question. I have to be honest. I don't have any real regrets as far as my career path has gone. Um, could I have gotten there faster? It's possible, but I'll tell you, there's something about taking the right opportunity where when you're ready for the right opportunity. I can say that had I been given a C-suite opportunity earlier than I got it, I probably wasn't mature enough or ready for it, right? I hadn't fully developed those skills. I can say that, I consider myself a lifelong learner, and I do a lot of self-development, whether it's, managerial or corporate or leadership or whatever, but also personal development type stuff. Um, but I didn't start that until maybe 10 or 12 years ago when I really understood like, oh, this is what is important. And again, it came from a mentor of mine someone that I saw doing that and really admired about them. That I realized, okay, well, this is someone that I respect and admire and recognize the value that they're getting out of it. I can tell you, had it happened to me 15 years ago, I probably wasn't personally ready for it. I could have probably done the job, but I wouldn't have been as good at it as I am today. And I'll admit, I've worked with enough organizations and seen enough other C-suite leaders that don't have that self-awareness, and it doesn't make them great leaders. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, I'm very different from that perspective, but I could definitely see like that side of things. I think that's the right way to do it when you're dealing in the world that we're in. I'm, I'm more of like the dive in the deep end, figure it out when I'm drowning type of
Yeah.
person.
Well, and you have an entrepreneurial nature. You have
Yeah,
I'll do it on my own kind of nature. I have never been that. I have never had an entrepreneurial bent. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't love to be in that environment, but I admire the fact that you're willing to go out there and just risk it all on yourself. That is
I appreciate that. No,
really
it's
not
funny.
something that I've ever had the risk aversion to do on my own.
Yeah, no, it's funny because like I hear your side of the world and I'm like, I wonder how I would be on that one, like, and like if like I wonder if like if I ever got interviewed for a position like what they would think, like so,
Yeah,
but that's the cool part about I think doing this podcast and just learning is just different perspectives in the world of cybersecurity, and it also goes to show you the different angles that somebody can take, right?
yeah,
Like you want to come in on the side of running with inside the business, or doing your own thing, or I've seen a lot of people kind of go from being a C-suite to running their own consulting firm in cybersecurity. It's just such a prominent industry. There's so many angles that somebody can take these days, you know. But you've hit upon a couple of points on mentorship, and I love that, right? Because I in my life have what I mean, I consider them close friends now in a lot of my, you know, in my life, but I've always had like for everything someone I could call. So like, you know, for business, like okay, if it's for sales, I have my friend, his name is Joe, good great guy, he's amazing sales trainer, does you know wonders for a lot of big businesses. So I call him up, you know, if I need anything for systems, I have somebody, for leadership, I have somebody, and that's just business, right? And then now I turn into my life now for like, you know, physical coaching, fitness coaching. Like I've always been that way, but that's just cause like I had to, because like I dropped out of college, to be really honest. And I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do. So I just naturally was like, I'm gonna go talk to people who've done it. Right. Growing up though, I've learned that not a lot of people see that to be the normal way to attend knowledge. And the common question I get is, how did you do that? How did you get mentors? How did you convince these successful individuals to give you their time? And you know, I may have my version of it, but I'd love to hear your side of the story and what your, you know, 2 cents on that is.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. Particularly, today. I think that people seek, particularly young people, they seek that out in different ways now, and some of it good, some of it not so good, right? I think. Well, I'll give you an example, like Reddit, for example. Like Reddit is a in certain areas, it's a great place to go and get feedback from really talented, really smart people in very niche areas, right? Now, at the same time, it's a terrible place to go and get information because you don't know who this person is and you don't know what they've really done and if they're just jacking with you. Um, but and the same can be said for other social sites and so on and niche groups and forums and stuff like that. But there are really good ones. I think that that's more reflective of our sort of anti-social behavior these days, particularly post-COVID and everything else, that this idea of seeking someone out in person, spending time with them, observing them, and really learning from them. And then coupled that with this idea of, loanership, that I'm going to do it on my own. I'm going to do it without anybody's help. And, I want to make my own mistakes. I mean, I hear my own kids say that all the time. And I just think that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why do you want to make your own mistake? Why wouldn't you want to learn from others? I think it's a matter of self-reflection, self-awareness. But at the same time, I grew up in a time when that was a thing, right? That everybody, like having a mentor, I'm 25 years older than you are, but at the time that I came up, like that was very common, was to have a mentor. And there are still mentor mentee programs out there professionally, particularly in professional worlds, like even in finance. There are several, whether it's a women's mentor system or a particular track mentor mentee system. There are chambers of commerce and other groups that offer mentor mentee situations. I just happen to be lucky in that they were typically people that I worked with, right? Mm. Sort of unofficial mentor mentees, but I was always pretty good about picking out people that I believed in, had great respect for, and were always really straight with me and, really good for my development. Not all of them were always people that I worked for, but maybe worked with.
Did you just like simply like ask?
Yeah, and sometimes I didn't even have to ask. I can, I can tell you, just to give you a small anecdote, and it may be just a tiny thing, but I can tell you it happened 30 years ago, and it still resonates with me today. I was a one-man IT shop for a group of auto dealers, and this was, back in 1996 or something, or 1998. Internet was just coming out. Most people just had dial-up here and there, and we were, networking their disparate dealerships together into a single system. Back then, every car dealership had its own core system for parts, service, and sales, and you could really leverage scale by networking them all together and just having one main core system for all of that instead of paying hundreds of thousands of dollars at every dealership. You could just have one system and have them all network back together to it. And so there was real opportunity there. But I was a one-man shop trying to serve 350 different people in 5 locations, and it was a brutal grind. But I was young and just sort of getting into it, and there would be times when things would be going wrong at a particular dealership, and I would show up just hair on fire, running around, obviously like nervous and afraid, and trying, scrambling and looking busy, and in my mind, that to me that was what I was supposed to do, is look busy, look like I'm moving fast and addressing stuff. And it was the general sales manager there who came up to me one day. He's like, "You got to stop doing this. You're freaking everybody out. Like, they're calling you because they want some sense of calm. Like, when you roll in, I don't care how bad it is, you need to be the image of calm, because people are going to feed off the energy that you bring to the table." Right? If you're the rescue guy and you don't look like you know what's going on, or you don't have the confidence when you walk in the door, that doesn't mean don't move with purpose, don't act with purpose and intent. But if you look like you're freaked out, everybody's going to be freaked out. And he was right. That's exactly what was happening. That I would come in all freaked out, looking, in my mind, what looked like the right thing to do was exactly the opposite of what to do. And I still incorporate that to this day, even when the worst of things is happening, to be able to remain calm. And it really helps me, because now I can think calmly. I can assess the situation. I'm not frantic in my own brain trying to come up with solutions. I'm not so focused on fix. I'm focused on what is the real problem? What is the real issue here? And so, to this day, that is something that I try to mentor my own teams in developing, is I can't have you going in here just completely reactionary, completely, frantic and wild-haired. I need you to be the face of calm, because that's going to calm the people who have called you. The people who are depending on you are reading your energy and your behavior. And you can be, the duck on the pond, where your feet might be going 1,000 miles an hour, but on the surface, you're just calm and steady, right? And so that's just one example of somebody that was just happened to be a friend. He was somebody that I worked with, but he was full of those kinds of insights. And, he had ascended in that sort of same way, right? That he had learned these same sort of skills, and that's why he was where he was. And I really admired him, and the fact that he would, from time to time, pull me aside and give me coaching and personal development. And we remain good friends to this day. That was almost 30 years ago, almost 30 years ago. So like I said, I've been fortunate in that. I've sort of taken that approach to, each place that I go, is to sort of assess the leaders that are there and find the ones that I admire and like, and even to assess the ones that I thought were not good leaders, and to mindfully not adopt their practices, right? To make sure that I don't ever behave that way, because I know how that person made me feel, and I don't want to make others feel that way by my actions. And so to be mindful of not adopting bad practices, and to adopt what I consider to be good practices.
Interesting. Okay, so it's even looking at those that don't necessarily do as well, and just kind of take notes on like what to not do for yourself.
Yeah, I think you can get just as much out of how I should behave by looking at people who have bad, poor behavior, right? Because not everybody's going to come up to you and tell you how to behave. And even sometimes people, again, like me in that example, where I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought my behavior was how it should be. And other people will, try to influence you that, oh, you should do this. This is how you should behave in this instance. And, if it doesn't align with my morality or sense of right and wrong, that no, I'm not going to adopt what you think is good, because I can see how other people react to you. I can see how other people are not motivated by you. I can see how you treat your direct reports. That I'm going to opt not to choose your personality traits and your leadership characteristics in my own work.
I love it. I love it, Darren. I know we went completely off topic from the questions I originally sent you, but this has been a really insightful conversation, very different than the other ones that I've had. I really appreciate you for hopping on. Where can people find you online?
You can find me on LinkedIn, primarily LinkedIn. I do a couple of these types of things a quarter. So if you just search my name, social media, that kind of thing, you can usually find me. I do write some articles on AI and cybersecurity. So a lot of finance specific industry magazines and online things, Bank Director, American Banker,
Nice.
that sort of thing. You can find me there.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, I appreciate you for hopping on and for just being a part of the show. This has been very insightful. Thank you again. And for everybody that's listening, if you guys enjoyed, please remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more content. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. All right. Have a good day.